Welcome everybody to the Connecticut Collections 101 level training today. We're going to be going over, so I'm clearing some windows out of my way here. We're going to be going over really some basics, a lot of like really basic stuff for the system, a lot of kind of admin-y, almost back-end kind of things, just to kind of give you an idea of how the whole thing overall works, and to be able to wind your way around. I put in the chat at the top of the chat for anybody who can see it. We can send it afterwards, or you can look. There is a manual. It's available as PDF on the CLHO webpage. You can download it, open it, whatever you need to do. It will be getting updated. I started, and then we just got into public portal and collective migrations and new systems and everything, and I haven't had time to go back to it and do what I wanted to do. Plus, we're making a couple updates to the system overall that I want to make sure are included in this version. So, but the version we're using that is going to be up is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing incorrect. So you're totally fine using that one. The other one will just be better once I get it going. As I mentioned before, I know some of you joined. If anyone has questions as we go, feel free to either raise a hand or pop it in the chat. Dana's going to keep an eye on the chat as well and let me know if anybody's got a question, because I've got a lot of windows open, so I may not see you, but he can grab it. So basically, actually, let me do a quick share of this. So this is what the beginning of the manual looks like. A lot of explanation, well, not too much explanation, goes through logging in. I'm just going to zip through it and then we'll go step by step. Talk about the database structure and terms, which we're going to go over. Navigating, there's lots of graphics and squares and circles and stuff like that to try to help like make it make more sense as you go through. So one thing I would recommend as you go on, we're going to use the sandbox as a example today. One thing I would recommend as you guys start setting up your systems and getting into them is definitely pick at least one person to kind of act as the database administrator, to be the one who is keeping track of how things work, who's adding new users, who's handing out user access levels, that kind of thing. We're going to get into adding new users in a minute, so we'll have a little bit more on that. But having one person who's really, at least one person, should probably be a couple in case someone's out traveling the world, having a couple of people who know what's going on in the back end. So when you get that new volunteer come in, they can also add them in and no one's just sitting there using all the same passwords and things. So as you know, if you've either got your new system yet or been using it or have just been into the sandbox, when you go to your instance, and everybody has their own individual instances, so it's only what you're using in your institution. You're going to see this at the top, the collective access, and it'll say CLHO and then your institution. So you'll know you're in the right place. Make sure that it says what you need it to say, that we've named your institution correctly. That's basically just your own information. That part of it doesn't go out anywhere, but it's just good to have it, make sure we have it correct. Your username here. When you get your system, you're going to get, if you haven't already, you're going to get the username administrator and then just a random made up password. So once you get that, go ahead and go in and change your password to something that is not as weird and random. You will also, when you go in, and I'll show you in a second, see that we as Connecticut Collections admins, system folks, have our own password and login to your system. Please leave that as it is, because if anybody has a problem or needs something, it's much easier for us to pop in under our own password and get in and see what the issues are and what we need to do. We will not change any of your data. So we don't go in and edit or change data or anything. You know, if you need us to, we can, but we don't go in and do that. We're usually just going in to look around for something. So enter your username, password, click login. I actually meant to take some of this away before we started so I could show you the main one. So you'll usually go in, this is the main landing page. It's the dashboard, basically, of where you're going to be, with all of the controls up here on the top. This is the default dashboard. The dashboard can be customized by login. So this is what we've just happens to be up for Sandbox right now. You can change your own and move it around. Everybody will start out and have this little counts widget at the beginning, and then the rest of it you can add or move around as you want. To be able to do that, we're going to get to this in a minute too, but you see this little edit dashboard button here. When you click that, it kind of gives you a little explanation, and then we'll ask if you want to add a widget. So if you add one, there's a bunch to choose from. You can choose clock and put that in there, and I have so many on here, it'll just add it to like the bottom of the list. You can rearrange these as you want and move it to a different spot. I can move it to the top. Anytime, universally for the system, anytime you see this little I, it means there's more information about something. So this is going to say it's in digital mode, or we want analog mode. Show seconds, sure. And you have to click save, and then it'll come up and show a different view. And that's true for all of these. I'm just going to play with them a little bit more so you can get more of an idea. One of the ones that I like to have all the time just because it's fun is random object. And that's just something random that's on the system that'll show up, and you can, again, move any of these around. You can get rid of them if you don't like them. Like if I don't want this links, if I just click the X, it just removes it from my display. This is really useful for anybody doing the collections manager roles, to show things like this, showing the last 10 collections created, that I put up the other day for something we were doing. It's really great if you've got a group system-wide, institution-wide project you're working on too. So I can say on this one, this just says recently created. If I click on the I can change between objects, entities, collections, things like that. So if I want to see the last, and you can change the limit too. So if I want to see the last 50 objects created, that's a bit much, but I can do that and click save. And then it'll scroll down to the last 50 objects that were entered into this system. You can show all kinds of stuff on here. I'm not going to go through all of them. But here's all the ones on this. Some of these may change by your login access. But some of the main ones you'll be able to see, like I think you'll always be able to see the like the advanced search and things like that. You can do processing status, all kinds of stuff on here. So go ahead and go in and play around with those. Once you get your own personal login, it'll just be on your login. So you can do whatever you want and arrange it anytime, any way you want. I'm done, whoops. Done with this guy. So I'm going to click done up here, and that kind of locks everything in for that. So this is a really good way to start accessing the system when you first jump in, especially if you've already got items in. You can just go in and click any of these numbers highlighted in blue, and it'll go into that group of objects. So in case you're like, oh, I don't know which object do I want to search or I want to look for, but I know I want to look at objects, you can click on here. We're going to go to, for anybody who's going to be administrating logins and passwords and all that, we're going to go over some of that. You're going to want to go up here. We've got, oh, let me go over this first too.
Hey, Diane, real
yes.
quick before you keep going.
No, go for it, please.
Kathy asked if you can resize widgets.
No, you can't resize them. You can make them like show more things or show less things. You can't resize them. That's kind of just like a set set display.
And then for each item and object, does it save who entered the item?
You can. I don't think I have it on this one. You can see who did what. Like this, I've got recent logins is basically all administrator because that's the only password that's out there. You can go dashboard, add widget, recent logins, recent changes. You can add in. Ooh, that's cool sampler. Whoever that belongs to. Oh, you know, it's only going to show administrator anyway because of the one login, but you can on a couple of them play around with that. I think on recent changes, you can see who made those changes, which is useful. And you can see who's adding things. Oh yeah, recent changes, collective access administrator. So if we had a bunch of different logins, you'd see like Dana edited this, Diane created this record, stuff like that. Okay, so when you go into, you'll have this top bar. Anytime you have this collective access in the top left, that will get you back to basically this screen from wherever you are. If you're like, I just want to start from the beginning again. You'll see over on the top right, this is a quick search box. So it basically searches across several different fields and all of the different modules. So we're calling the groupings modules. So there's the objects module, an object lots module, entities module, which is the people or companies linked to items. Occurrences is actually exhibitions, and I literally keep forgetting to have him change that to exhibit, to actually say exhibitions. So you just have to know that occurrences is exhibitions for now. Collections, which are archival collections, but also due honestly to a lot of the way that past perfect migrates and that we've migrated stuff in the past. There are a lot of collections of like objects on there too in some of them. We're not doing that as much going forward, but we haven't like sorted out how we want to work that, but it's generally meant to be archival collections. And object representations, just the media images here. So it'll search across all of those fields in this quick search box. If you're going in and just want to start entering a new record, start out new, pick your module that you want, and it'll come out with choices depending on the module. So like object, it'll want to know the type. If it's audio, book, document, moving image, physical object, stuff like that. And find, same thing, you get those module choices and you have options of basic search, advanced search, search builder, and browse. We're not going to get too deep into that today. That's kind of more getting into like 102 level. Import, you don't need to worry about, that's importing data or media and stuff, and that's more back end if we've got additional stuff to import, and you can work with us if you have any of that.
Hey, Diane, again,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead. And I see your camera pop up. I know you have a question,
yeah,
so it works out well.
Cool, that's gonna be our system then. Natalie asked from Avery Kopp, would you be able to spend, like, see different users and how much time they spend on collective access, and not just when they log on, but how much time they actually spend on the site?
No, you won't be able to see total time. You'll just be able to see log on. And it doesn't automatically like shut it down when they stop using it or if they actually hit log off. Ooh, that's actually a good point. Way down here at the bottom, and depending how your screen is showing, it'll show you who's logged in. It'll give you preferences, which we'll go over a little bit later, and log out. So you can log out of your system. Like if you use a shared computer, and you want to log out, you can just log yourself out. But no, yeah, it doesn't show you how long somebody's logged in for. You guys have really good questions so far. Okay, so new, find, manage, import. So we're going to look at manage because I want to talk about creating new logins. So overall, We do not dictate how you guys use the system. It is totally up to you guys to come up with your own rules and regulations and standards and workflow and all that. I will, however, strongly recommend things from time to time, mostly as a database person and past system administrator and a collections manager. I will highly recommend certain things to do. I will highly recommend everybody who's using it gets their own login. You have unlimited logins, so you can do as many as you want. You're not limited to like 5 licenses or anything. And even though, for instance, I've got interns at my museum that change over every once in a while, I still give each intern their own login. I don't have a general like library intern, museum intern login, because I do still want to see what those folks are working on. And it's useful, especially if I've got someone that's, you know, doing the costume collection, inventorying it, and I want to go in and double check their records and make sure that they're public access or not, I can pull that stuff together. So if we go up to manage, you're going to have a lot of different options here. Keeping in mind, we're logged into the sandbox right now as the administrator. If you have a cataloger level or something else, you may not see some of these choices. Oh, actually, we'll get to this in a second. Make myself a note so I don't forget to tell you. Okay. There's a lot of different little things here. We'll go over them, but I just want to make sure we get the access thing. So you click on access control, and that'll get to this window where you've got user logins, user groups, and use access rules over here. For the most part, the whole system works the same way in the fact that this middle window is your main window that you're viewing and working on. And on the left-hand side, there'll be a column where you can make choices in different pages between user logins, user groups, and access roles, which are the administrators, catalogers, things like that. So back to user logins. So right now you'll see full access users here. This is everybody that we've got logins created for in the sandbox. This is their login name shown here. You can sort by that. Their actual name, their email, and whether they're active or not, and the last time they logged in. So if you want to create a new user, say you're starting out and you're doing a login for, you know, another person in your institution. And even if you are going to be like the administrator, I would still give yourself an actual real login and leave that administrator login as just like a access point in general. So if you're searching for somebody, you can type up here. If you want to show full access users versus public only access versus anybody that's been deleted, you can do that there. I very rarely use this, but we do want a new user. So anytime you see that little plus button, that means you can add something. You can add something to that. There's little plus buttons under fields, so you can add an additional field. This is the screen that you'll see for this. It'll just be like a little form to fill out. So if it comes up and it's got something in it already, it's okay. You can type over it. You're not typing over that user's thing. It's just, it is a kind of echo of what's there. So I'm not overwriting the administrator login. So I'm gonna use, oh, did I use her already? I'll use her again and see what happens. So for the username, you can do whatever you want. If you want to type in people's whole names, if you want to type in last names, just for something generally short, I type in first initial last. I use first initial last name at my museum. So I'm going to use Susie Pester. She's going to be full access. Her password is going to be Fairfield. You won't be able to see it as you type, so you have to pay attention when you type. It'll ask you to confirm the password and then enter in their information. So her name is Susie Tester. I'm going to use our email. Emails are required. So even if you don't want to have individual interns' emails or anything, you can just use your own general email if you want. That's fine. SMS number, I've never used. It's a text number if people want to get text messages. You can also do related entity if you wanted to do that. Like if you're an entity in your own system, you can put a related entity in that. By default, when you go in, this little checkbox account is activated is checked off. If you want to keep somebody in, say you've got an intern for the summer and they go back to school and you don't want to delete them for your system because they'll be back, you can just uncheck that and they just won't have access for like the school year. And if they come back, you can just check it again and you're fine. Very important. You want to make sure that there is a role checked off for this person. And that there is, group is a little bit more negotiable. You don't have to have a group, but it can be useful. I'm going to make Susie a cataloger. You can put organization name and address and everything here. You don't have to. It's not a required field. Just for kicks, I usually put the state down, but it doesn't matter. So I've selected cataloger, account is activated, and resize my window so I can see everything. So you want to click save at the bottom. A word about save and cancel. Throughout the whole entire system, the system does not auto save. So you have to click save when you're adding or editing things. It will remind you if you haven't clicked save. So if I'm going in and I say, okay, I'm done with this, I want to go use a group, you'll get this little window that pops up and goes, are you sure? Leave site, changes may not be saved. So I'm going to go, oh, you're right, I forgot to save. So cancel, we'll stay on the site and click save. Oh, I must have, see, now if you've got somebody with the same name, you have to have a different username. So I've already used Susie Tester. So I'm going to use Susie Volunteer and change her last name. That also means you can go back in and go, oh, wait, we already had her in here. Let me go double check. Oops. So this is actually something to keep in mind too. So if I click save now, it's going to say, oh, you don't have a password, because sometimes when you jump back, there's no password on that first initial adding somebody in. So we're going to go back in. We can use same passwords for people. I don't recommend it. Okay, so now I don't need to save her because we're fine, but it'll come up and say that we added a user, and you can see her listed on here somewhere. Oh, Susie Volunteer, here she is. Oh, I had Ted Tester before. And it'll give you what we used for their admin and stuff. If we suddenly decide Susie Volunteer, we want to change something on her information. Anytime you see this little icon over here that looks like a piece of paper with the corner folded over, that's an edit. So you click on edit, you're back into her group record here. Say we forgot to assign her to a group. We're going to put her into volunteers, and I shouldn't have to click this again, but I am just in case. And we'll talk about groups in a little while. It's not vital to getting somebody set up initially. So I made that change. We're going to click save. And you'll see the little icon on the tab on the top turning to make sure that the system is going. I always do like to test out the login before I give it to somebody, just to make sure that I'm giving them the right thing and they're okay. So in order to do that, you can click log out at the bottom. You're back here, you want to now logged out, log in again. Yes, I'm going to actually try Susie. And yep, she's in. So she's got a blank dashboard. because you've just created her. So if you want to add, while you're in as her, if you want to create anything on here for her, you can, but then they can go in and change it later on. But this is what you'll get. So there's something here. If you're look up at the top and there's no choices for things up here, go back and check your person, because you may not have put them in a cataloging group. You may not have made them like an administrator or cataloger or something like that, and it'll just show up as blank. I've done it many times. Just going to click log out, log in again as administrator, and go look at our access control. So we've got everybody here and everybody's got their passwords and things. Any questions at this point on this end of things? This is one of the more important things, to make sure you're getting all your people in and they have all their logins. There we go. Okay. I'm going to skip user groups for now. Well, actually, I'm just going to say a quick word about user groups. I'm not going to get into it too much. This is a good way of grouping everybody together by like project or by what their role is. So it's being able to control other aspects of the system down the road. And you'll see this pop up in the future. But like on this, for instance, we've got everyone belongs to this everyone group. We've got the exhibition team group, and we've also got a volunteer group. So that way you can give people access or not give them access to certain things depending on what like group they're part of. And we'll get into this more probably in like 102 level or some of the other trainings. Access roles, the third choice down, is important because this tells people or lets people have access to certain things or not have access to certain things. Administrators can pretty much do anything. Not even pretty much. Administrators can do everything. So you want to be careful who you give administrator to. It may seem like some of the other things are limited between what they can do. So that just means you may need to add another level of access, or you may need to edit their level of access. And we can help you with that because it gets very fussy. There's a lot of little boxes and things to check. Most of the ones that have come out of the box are administrators, catalogers, researcher, I believe. I don't think those other two are on there. But those will be basic. Administrators can do everything. Catalogers have a little bit more access level, like they can delete things sometimes. That's one of the reasons I wouldn't give administrator to everybody, because administrators can delete things. And we don't want to accidentally give people the power to delete. You want to watch that. I had one poor volunteer accidentally delete a record because she was trying to delete an image that was attached to it because it was the wrong one. And she accidentally deleted the record and she was horrified, and I felt really bad for her. And I was able to pull stuff back and it wasn't a big deal because she told me as soon as it happened. But you don't want to have to put them in that position kind of thing. So if you want to change any of these, again, feel free to ask us and we can walk you through some of it. But if we'll go into catalogers, again, that little edit one. Most things on this too, if you hover your icon over something that's clickable, it'll tell you what it does. Like if you wanted to get rid of a role, you could click on the X, but it tells you like it's going to delete this. So we're going to go and look at cataloger just to see what some of this looks like. And I'm going to scroll down relatively quickly, so don't worry about catching all of it. There's a lot of little check boxes and things that control what they can and can't do. Most of the time it's all set up and it's fine. But this is why we can either help you tweak an existing login or help you create a new one. So if there's something that doesn't quite fit in the roles, since there's only a few, we can create a new one for you. And I think I have the volunteer one on this because we didn't have something that was like that middle between only viewable and editable, like curator level. But it'll go through you'll see the cataloger's name, the description of what it does, and you'll see little tabs down here about the actions that this person can do. Talks about if they can view change logs, and a lot of this is going to be absolutely like make absolutely no sense if you've not used the system that much at all. Even after you do, it still doesn't always make a lot of sense. Trying to find something that like create object. So this level can create an object. It can edit an object. Delete object is not checked off. So they will not even see the option to delete something. It's just not even there. But they can search objects, they can browse objects. A lot of these aren't checked off because we don't want them to have that option. We don't want them to be able to duplicate objects. We do not want them to batch edit objects. So those things are not checked off. If you go in and you want to give somebody another access level, you can click that and add it on, and that's going to be totally up to you guys, but just know what you're giving them the ability to do. If you have a long time volunteer that's been there 30 years and knows the collection better than you do, and they're a whiz on the computer, go ahead and give them some extra access. If you have a new volunteer that's, in high school still and really has never worked in a museum before, you want to limit their access so they're not doing anything crazy just accidentally. But it goes through by section. Object editing, object representation editing is like any of the pictures that are added to something. Object lots are basically accession lots, entities, people. It goes down by the type. When you click under metadata, this one's actually, metadata sounds scary, but it's actually a little bit more understandable than the other one. It tells you what they have access to, like if they have no access to something, you want to make them have no access. If they have read-only access that they can't edit, they can only see it, or if they have read and edit access, so they can go in and do anything. And this is just kind of an overall of each individual element in the system. So again, this is really, really fussy. Please 100% reach out if you guys get in and start using the system and you're like, I wish this person could do this, or I wish they couldn't do this, and we can help you tweak that and figure that out. If you're really bored and want to go through and look at it one day, feel free. If you have questions about it, let us know, and again, we'll walk you through it. Most everybody seems to be fine with what's existing in their kind of out-of-the-box system. I really haven't had too many people get in touch wanting to tweak anything. So we're not making any changes in this, so I'm just going to hit cancel, and we're going back to this main page over here. Okay, everybody feeling okay about access and creating logins? I don't see Dana, and I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I guess we're doing okay so far. Okay. Back to this for a second. Okay, I'm looking at the manual, just kind of going through to see what I want to look at next. So again, that collective access in the corner, if you click on that, this gets you back to that dashboard landing page. So from here, we are going to, let's go into an object record. I think primarily everyone's going to be working with object records, and it kind of goes across everything, including if you've got archives and manuscripts, if you've been moving over from Past Perfect, those records from everything I've seen kind of get entered as individual records in Past Perfect, so they get entered under objects here as well. So if you've got documents and things, it's actually going to be like an object, and we'll get into that. That gets really more in depth with stuff, but they are still there. You still will see them. So we're going to go into objects, and because this system, and I know most of you I've talked to before, if you want to go in and play with the system, you don't want to do anything to yours yet. If you want to practice entering new logins and new access levels and stuff, feel free to do it in here and play around with it. It's totally fine. If you're not sure if you want to like totally jump into your system. But I also don't know what's in here for records. There's a bunch in here. Most of them have come from Fairfield. They were pre-migration cleanup records. So there's going to be a lot of wacky records in here, but that's fine because it's all there for everybody to play with. So if you want to click objects, it'll pull up all 792 objects here. So this is the view if you're pulling up a group of objects. And like I mentioned, it's got, this is the main screen that you're working with here. And it's got a like a spreadsheet style display up at the moment. It'll automatically come up with whatever the last style of view used was. So the last person on here was looking at it in this view. So this is what we come up with. And then on the left-hand side gives you options for navigation and for some other bells and whistles and things. It'll give you search options over here. Oh, one quick thing before we go from that other one. If you want to go in and just look for something, you can enter it up here, of course, and that'll search across everything. But if you want to search across just objects, you don't have to choose basic advanced necessarily. You can click on the actual object and it's going to come up to the same screen basically. Yeah, it didn't even change. It comes up to the same screen because you can also then pick a search from here over on the left-hand side as well. Right now, it just pulled up everything because we did it from that other count screen. If you want to, let me do two just for kicks. So I always feel like cat is a good word to search on because inevitably there's a cat somewhere. So there's 3 mentions of cat under objects. If you want to go in and just pull up everything in your collection all the way across the board, if you enter an asterisk, that acts as a wildcard and click the little search and you'll get the results here. Automatically, it defaults to objects and it opens up the list of objects. It will, anytime it says 100, it means there's more than 100 items available. It doesn't give you the actual count. It just means there's more than 100. You can either scroll down to some of the others and it won't list necessarily all 100. You can scroll down to the entities. There's more than 100 entities and put them there. Or you can, there's a little minus here. If you click the minus, it just scrunches the window up. If you click the plus, it expands it. So you'll see all the counts for everything else. And there's like 4 loan records. So if you hit that plus, it expands it to see those loans. Anytime you see this blue type with the underline, that's a link to that record. So if you click on that link, it goes to that record. And go back here for a second. Search again. Oh, the other thing too that's really useful is after you've gone into a couple records, you'll now see that there's this history button up here. So anytime you're in a record, it kind of tracks it for a little bit, like while you're logged in this sitting, and it'll say, oh, you looked at this loans record, here's that. So if I had gone into one of the cat related records, if I want to go into this quilt, and I'm going around and looking at stuff, and that's fine. And now I'm just going back to the main one. Oh, but I want to get back to that quilt cat record. If you click on history, now you're going to see objects and loans. And if you hover over objects, you'll see that quilt and you can click on that. So it saves you from having to enter the same number a million times in a session while you're sitting there. You can just hop back to a record if you want to. Clicking back in the browser works occasionally, but don't rely on it because it will, if you've made changes, the browser is looking for the record in a certain way before you changed it, and that record doesn't exist anymore, so it may not find it and you'll come up with something odd for it. Let's see. while we're in this object, let's take a look at this, and then we can go back to the other stuff too. So again, your main body of stuff is here. Your scroll is split up so that this bar is controlling this middle bit. Over on the left-hand side are the like page options, basically. At the top, you'll get results of your last search, whatever came up. So there were 3 results and we're on the 3rd record of the 3. It'll say that we're in editing physical object. If you're in an entity record, it'll say editing entity. So you can kind of look and see if you're like, where am I? Always look on this upper left-hand side and you can figure out where you are in the system. It's a good, bad, like everything looks very similar and it's very clean, but sometimes you're like, wait, I completely lost track of where I was. Because it's a relational system, everything does link to everything else. So it is really easy to be like, oh, I'm going to look at this person, and then I'm going to look at this thing owned by this person. Then I'm going to link at this other person. And you're not digging down a hole that you can't get out of. You're more just kind of hopping around from record to record. But also other things you'll see over here is the editing physical object. You're also going to see the current location listed up here on the top. If something's been assigned a home location, and this we'll come up with this later on, it will note that it's a home location as opposed to just a current location. And it'll note that there's something about photograph collection quilt. Don't know why it's part of a photograph collection, but again, it's the fun of the wacky anybody can play with stuff. And it's got its accession number right here at the top as well. So if you scroll up on this page, the first number that shows up is the object identifier, but it's always showing up over here so you can track it. Below this, you'll see a bunch of icons. And this is a watch, unwatch this record. I frankly never used this, so I don't know how well it works or if it's something that you want to see if somebody's working on in your system. I usually haven't found a need for it. This little recyclable arrow thing is changing the type. So if you accidentally put something like a new record in and you said it was a object and it's not an actual object, it's a still image of the object, you can change it. So if you click on that, you'll get a new little window that says change object type. And most of these windows will give a little explanation of it. So if you read that, that'll hopefully make sense. I do love this action cannot be undone. Well, it can't, but you can go in and change it back. You just can't reverse it, but you can change it back if you wanted to. So we're going to change type from physical object, which is what it is now, and we could change it to a still image, usually photograph. So we can save that. Depending what the type of an object is may affect the fields that are available. Mostly with things like if we tried to change this to audio, it'll change a field more so with this than some of the other stuff. So if you don't see a field like that you know should be there and you've always used, double check to make sure that something's in is the right type. So I'm going to put this back to physical object. This little duplicate this physical object button can be useful, but it literally does duplicate that object. So it'll come through with another number. If you have something that's like an exact copy or pretty close to exact copy, you can click that button. Like if you're putting in a series of like 10 photos that are all kind of the same thing. It throws a weird little 1 on the end, which you need to change. It'll throw a duplicate on you. You just have to go through and edit some of the information, but it'll basically duplicate that object.
There you go.
You can set home locations for things. For the sake of now, we'll just say that that's how you do that, and we'll get into locations and things a little bit later, because I'm going to give you some more background on that before we get into home locations. In this I will give you more information about this record. It kind of opens up this little window a little bit, and it tells you what sets things are in, like how it's grouped together in things, when this was created ago. So this is the duplicate record. So it was created 6 seconds ago by me logged in as Collective Access admin. And then last changed a second ago by this person. So if we go forward to another record, see this one was created 4 years, 8 months ago by this person. It was last changed 2 years, 7 months ago. So it does give you kind of little of when somebody last updated something. A lot of the time you'll get some of this information on the left-hand side will be cramped because there might be an image there. So this is, I usually keep this kind of closed and collapsed so there's more room to see everything else. So I'm just looking at this quickly as you go through. I'm not going to get too into all the fields, but as you, right now, this is the basic information page. If you wanted to go to a different page, you just click on the one at the left. It'll now highlight it and it'll show you the things that are in those fields. Very important, especially for folks going in as new systems with like totally blank. When you create a new record, so we're going to create an object, we're going to create a physical object. We're going to create 2023.99.0. You'll notice on the left-hand side, there's no pages. There's nothing to choose from. You just have this creating new physical object up here. So if you just at least put in that and click save, now you'll see you have all of your choices over here. You'll see we didn't put anything in title, so that shows up as blank, noting that you didn't put anything in there, and you still have everything else here to start filling in. But just know this does not appear until you hit save. So when putting records in, if you have like a whole worksheet of stuff, click save before you try to start putting everything in, because that way you'll have everything. Hi, Dana.
Hello. So we have a question about sound recordings, and if you have a sound recording from an object, how would you save that file in Collective Access?
What do you mean if you have a sound recording from an object?
This was from Melissa Houston.
Hi, Melissa. Melissa, what do you mean if you have a sound recording?
So we have, like a music box.
Oh,
and
okay.
we like a turn handle to it and it plays the music, and we recorded that music. So our hope was that when we have it online, the object itself, people would be able to hear the audio. But I'm wondering how you create those two files and connect those two files.
That's really cool. I never would have thought of that, honestly. I would just add the audio file to the object record as part of the media. So okay. in here, you've got your main object, and over on the left-hand side, you've got media partway down, and you can add any and all media here to this here. So I would actually just add it right there. So when you go into a record, if it's got multiple things, you may want to show the picture of the music box first as like your primary image, but then it'll show up the sound wave as well too.
Okay.
I don't know if we've got any oral history stuff in here.
No, we have a second question from Tina at the Avon Library. And it's a donor question, which is there a way that we should enter information into the provenance tab so that we can search and find items by the donor or donor's family?
Really good question. And actually that can make me move on to the entities a little bit too. And I can cover both of those. So a quick note before we go onto that. So I just searched for oral histories and these two records show up. So when you see this little like speakery icon, that means there's an audio file attached to it too. So if you have this and you click it, it'll go to the audio file. I don't know if this plays or not for you guys. I'm hearing static. Could you hear that or no? No, boo. It's like it's very cool. Okay, I'll close that. So it would show up like here. So you'd see the picture and then you'd see that as an option. I don't know if this has both or not. But yeah, I can put them up at the same time, which is cool. Okay. So for the donor information thing, get back to the main thing for a second. So one of the modules is object lots. I think of it as object accession lots or just accession lots, not even necessarily objects, because you can relate anything to it. Not everyone uses lots. I find it very useful, partially because in Fairfield, I am rebuilding groups of donations that came in over the years. Different numbers from different groups and things were given out, and if I had a group of 5 things from the Porter sisters originally, it may not have the same number that traces back to them. It may not have the names correctly. So I'm kind of using lots to rebuild my donations and also to track new ones. So there's as with the system, there's a couple different ways to do a lot of different things. So it's kind of what works best for you. If I go into object lots, this is how oh, somebody remind me, Dana, remind me to go back on display again after some of this to show some of these buttons over here. And where are we? We're at 2, we're doing okay. So this is the lot identifier, and what we have is like the name. It'll have a place for collection name. I don't really have names for my collections. I just put the accession number there. Go into this one. So this is 1977.14. I've got the dates it's received. So down here, I have related entities that it was received from John L. Christie. If I want to add and say, oh, wait, he was the donor, I can put him as donated by there and save it. And then your credit line can go here. So as I mentioned with the underline in the thing, this means it attaches to another record in the system. So if I click on him, and mind you, that leave site you didn't save thing popped up because I added something or changed something and I didn't save it, which in this case is fine. So I'm going to leave and go to John's record. And this is preferred labels, his name, a lot of information about him, life dates, titles, occupation, there's a biography, notes on somebody, especially important for previous donors over the years and married women and married women's names. We have alternate names here. So you can put in, type their somebody's birth name, a maiden name, a married name, things like that there, and you can change, make it whether somebody's public access or not, or this name's public access. I generally do not make people public access at all in general, unless they've been dead for like 100 years, unless they're an artist. And then that's a different case. If you've got a current artist, you might want to make their bio displayable on there in this, and just have like a little artist bio under their biography. There are certain fields that if you're doing public access on the public portal, there are fields that do not go to the public portal and are not published. Most importantly, anything that's here in the contact info does not get published to the portal. So they will not have their home address and their telephone numbers and email addresses and all that will not go out to the public portal. But alternate names will go out if you want, and a few fields in the basic info. Trying to think, mostly like bio will go out, notes does not go out, names will go out, that kind of thing. So you'll also see over here that they have one related object. which as there's just one, we know what it is. If you click on that, we go back to that egg carton thing that we were just on. Actually, we were on the lot, so that's just related to the object. This is the object that's in that lot, is an egg carton. And you can go into that record because we linked to it from him. And if you scroll down, you'll see General Christie provided by. So he gets put there. So when you're in the actual record and you're asking about the provenance part, so provenance and rights is here. Provenance is one of those fields that we do not publish to the public portal, just because by its nature and the way different institutions fill this field in different ways, sometimes you don't want that information public. Like where it came from, especially if you've got like anonymous donor or something, you can put it in here for your records, but it won't go to the public. So provenance is not published. I generally use it as general history of the object. It's a little bit more casual than like an art piece might be, but I'll put this dress was sewn by Mary Fish Selman. It was passed on to her daughter and continued to be passed down the generations until it was it reached the donor, you know, Sue Fish, and she gave it to the Fairfield Museum on 28 May 2019. You know, I'll do something like that for me. However you choose to do provenance is kind of a good thing to have recorded in your system. Some people will just do straight lines and just be created Mary Fish Selman, 1890. She was dead by then, but that's okay. Donated by donor, this person, this date. It's kind of whatever, however you want to format it. I would make sure to be consistent with it. It's the best for searching this field, even though it doesn't show up on the public portal, is searchable. But I would, as far as searching for people who gave things, I would attach them as an entity versus solely relying on the provenance field for that. It saves, one thing it saves for typos and mistyping and calling people by different names. Because I know so I want to look for people named Jennings. I'm going to squish my objects down and go to my entities. This is part I know there's a million of them in Fairfield, but doing it in here is not as much. I know I've got Miss Bessie C. Jennings here. If I was in my actual Fairfield database, I'd have a bunch more. And one of the things that I had in my old system, I don't know if she's got alternate names or not, she doesn't. Actually, I'm going to hop to Fairfield for a second to give you a better idea of how some of it looks. We're going to do that same search. So this is how I have my landing page dashboard set up at Fairfield, just for me. Yeah, so now you see I've got 99 people with the name Jennings in there somewhere. Yeah, there's a lot of Jennings in my town. So I have A. Elizabeth Jennings. And when you go in, I've got alternate names of Anne Elizabeth Jennings. And usually I thought I had A.E. Jennings in there as well, but I can put A.E. Jennings in there as well because I know that actually I'm gonna put it in because I don't know why I don't have it in there. Because I know she went by that at times. So I can just enter that. I'm going to put that in as an alternate name because it was kind of a nickname or like a different name that she used, not accessible to the public. Effective date's a relatively new field. So in theory, if you wanted to put like somebody's wedding date in when they changed to a married name, you could. I'm going to save that. And now this automatically fills in down here, the display name. I didn't have to type that. It just comes through automatically. So now she's got two different names. So if I search for A.E. Jennings, I'll come up with her. And you'll see on this one, she's got 149 related objects. So that's a question for that provenance. If you wanted to see where something came from or whatever, you can just click on that now and see that these are the 149 objects that are related to her in some way. Look at one thing. Okay, that's not what I was thinking it was going to do, or that's what I was thinking it was going to do. So we're going to skip that for now. But these are all objects that are related to her somehow. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
And we'll get, okay, awesome. And we can get more into that as things go too, but and you can see how you can relate people to different things. Since I'm here, a word about displays of things. These little buttons, oh, let me get rid of this for a second. So up at the upper right, and this is part of the navigation aspect of it, this little down arrow, and again, you hover, you'll see what the tools are for. This is the export tool. So you can export various things from this. You can export results as a PDF checklist, as word processing, like a Word document. You can export it as a spreadsheet, like an Excel spreadsheet, if you wanted a big checklist for something. We would actually do it quite often for potential exhibit items and download as a spreadsheet. You could take it off site and just go down the list and look at the items and make notes on it, things like that, if there was something that we wanted to pull for an exhibition. So you can make your selection, click the little arrow there. That's usually kind of like an execute arrow, like an enter in a way, and that'll happen. Let me do the PDF because I think it shows up on the same screen. So I don't have to share another screen. No, it's going to show up in a different one. Oh, no, shows up in this tab the way I have it set up. So like a PDF export will come out like this. So these things without images just don't have images. Otherwise, it'll just show like the primary image for something, and you can go through and see what all is related to this person. Some of our greatest hits in here. I love this. Okay, so go back to that record. So you can do all these when you want it. When you're done with that little window, click the minus, it goes away. This little, it looks like weaving to me. It's a filter and refining results. So it's supposed to be little sliders. If you click on that, you can filter your results. So we could say, for instance, I want to see only everything that has media. So there's 40 records out of 144 that have media. So we can just see that, or we can create a report that says these things still need to be photographed. So you can look at them in this spreadsheet kind of view, or you can also look at them if you click on this gear and your display options. If you click on this and click layout and thumbnail and click the little execute arrow, you'll come up with all of the images. If you just want to be like, I just want to see everything because I know what I'm looking for. Hi, Dana.
Hello. Okay, so we have a question. Do you need to create the entity first, then attach it to a particular object record?
You don't have to, but sometimes it's easier in a way. But we can go through and do it just to go through it. Some things you can do on the fly. So I'm making sure I'm in the sandbox before I mess with any records. So if I want to do a new object, do a photo again. Oh, and just another quick note too, if you put in something that has the same number, it will come up and say identifier is already in use. It will let you continue to add that object if it's something, especially with your adding old records and you're really not sure, and you know you have duplicates, but you don't know what, and you don't have time to sort it out now. It will let you go in and add that in as a duplicate number, but it does come up with this identifier is already in use. So once this is in there, if you click on that, it'll pull both of the records up at the same time. So it's a really good tool for cleaning stuff up. So I'm going to put in that we'll be doing this one. And this time I'm going to make so related entities. I'm gonna put that it was, if you step on my comic book people. Oh, no, I haven't. I don't think I have. Oh, I did, shoot. Okay. So I'm putting in that Sylvester Cat gave us this thing. It does not exist, so we can click create. You have the option of an individual or an organization, and the fields available very much depend on what type that is. So you can do individual. You can fill out stuff here if you want at this point, or you can come back to it. I'm going to click add individual. It'll come up and the name's filled in now. And the type, I'm going to say that he was the donor. And then you do have to save it because otherwise it won't go through it again. If you try to go, it'll say, wait, you haven't saved. So I'm going to click save. And now Sylvester Cat is in as the donor. And now if we wanted to, we can go into Sylvester Cat's record and enter information here. And then you still see now you've got that one related object from them. So did that help? A note about entities, like I said, I wasn't going to go too much into detailed stuff, but I will say while you're setting up stuff, and I think I talked about it in a couple of the office hours, with people's names, I know because a lot of us have been around for a very long time, a lot of our institutions have been around for a long time, we have a lot of gifts that are from Mr. and Mrs. I've got a lot from Mr. and Mrs. George Pratt. I've got a lot from just general Mr. and Mrs. As you're putting records in, I would create an entity record for each person. So you can put it in your, I'm gonna go back in my history and go into objects and that blank one I just created. You can still put in your credit line, and this is a free text field, so you can type in whatever you want, gift of Mr. and Mrs. Sylvester Cat. I'm pretty sure he was a bachelor, but that's fine. So you can put that there, but then I still would add the relationship here for Mrs. Cat for various reasons, including divorce, death, just people making their own donations. She may be donating stuff from her family in the past. He may be donating stuff from his family. There's various reasons. It's just a lot easier to have two different people. And it sounds like a lot to say like, well, that's like another one that I have to add. But now the records are already in there. So if I wanted to add people as I'm going, I just start typing their name and they'll show up and suggestions will show up. So I do want to say that Bugs Bunny was associated with this, and I put Babs Bunny in, so she's associated with this, and it's super easy. So you're not like redoing a whole new entry every single time. And the benefit is you've also got like that as an authority file for that person, so you don't have to worry about spellings and different names and things.
All right, another question is most of material is documents. We have several collections which have documents and physical objects. Add a physical object to an archival collection, MSS.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So going back to my, where am I? I'm in the sandbox. Okay. Going back to my main page again. I'm just going to go into collections. These are a bunch of the collections that are in there. I've got Sam Smith papers, correspondence is a series, letters from other, these are in a file. So say that I've got this as an object. And this is more of a, to show you, yeah, we can totally do this versus a step-by-step how to do it. You can add an object, it's right here in this little tab. You can add an object and you can choose new audio, book, document, like if you had an oral history that was part of your archival collection, they can put that here and it'll show up. So we're gonna make this a document because we've got like the scanned letter and put in the location of it, like the collection code here. I usually do it as like the collection ID the box number in the folder if I have it that I scanned it out of. We're going to keep that title of Letters to Mother since we're linking it to that. Click Save. And this actually, it's not adding an object. Oh, did I not click the other one? Oh, I didn't click. Oh, and I've done this a million times before. When you add a new document under Letters to Mother, then you want to click that little plus sign. And it'll actually ask you if you want to leave, because what it's doing is kicking you over to the creating a new document object. So because we're not, for the sake of this, we're in MS 989, we're not putting it in as an individual thing, but we're going to put making this up, totally not archival, not an archivist. Let's say Letter to Mother 1939. And we can save that. And now we're in the object part. So you're actually talking about it as an object. But if you go back to, this is getting into a lot of jumping around that everyone's gonna be like, wait, I've totally lost track about where I am. If you go into location, location acts as physical location for things. It's stored in main storage in the manuscript section in aisle A, or there's this little bit up here, location hierarchy, that you can open up, and it'll show you that this Letter to Mother 1939 is in the Sam Smith papers under correspondence under Letter to Mother, and it'll show you those. And clicking on one of those levels in the hierarchy, the collection series, subseries, pops you back over to archives. Everybody confused now? Took me a while. So, because again, not an archivist. So getting a grip on archives is always interesting. But now you'll see in your whole series of stuff, you'll see that this shows up at the end. This is a document. So it's showing that it's a thing. Hi, Jenny, you're still here. So there's more questions. Yay.
One more question.
No, I love questions. I love questions.
How do we know which field? I like this question because this is a fun one to answer. How do we know which fields will be public and which ones will not be public?
I have a list somewhere that I can send out or put out for people. I should actually put it on like the CLHO page or something. Basically anything with personal information or potential for personal information is not public. So if we go to like this egg carton one, it's all like the main key things of like title, date, two things with this description. There's a curatorial description and a public access description. This is, the curatorial description is much more of a nuts and bolts description. This egg carton is metal. It has a hinged lid. It has 4 inside trays with cardboard. Some of the cardboard is in rough shape. That's not actual language, but that's okay. So it's more like nuts and bolts of something, and bad spelling, apparently. I'm in the sandbox, doesn't matter. It'll be there. The public access description is more meant as like interpretive. It's like something you would put up on a label in an exhibit. This egg carton was used during the turn of the century by local farmers in Fairfield as they started to raise chickens and sell eggs and things like that. By default, if there is a public access description, the public access description will be the one that goes onto the portal. If there is no public access description, the curatorial description shows up so that there is something there. For the majority of all of us, I'm going to say 99.99999, it's always just the curatorial description that goes up, because even if we wanted to have a public access description, most of us just want to start getting records in and don't have time to kind of do the interpretive aspect of like a public access description. There's no reason they can't be the same thing. Since the public access or the curatorial is going to go up, if there's no public access, you can just leave the curatorial and not worry about the public access, unless you have something really interesting to say, kind of thing. Related entities will go up only in as far as the maker. The donor does not show up as a related entity. However, their credit line will. The credit line will always show up, but usually that's the approved how they want to be identified or not identified. If somebody says gift of an anonymous donor, that's what it'll say, but their real name like won't show up. Basically, created by is the main thing that shows up here. Created by, published by, associated with shows up on those fields. So donated by, provided by are things that don't show up because those are more in terms of like the donation. Notes do not show up because there's too many instances of mostly us leaving notes in records for each other within our institution that it doesn't make sense for the notes to be up there. There's another place to put that. Like if you had a note about an object, but it wasn't super important, then put your curatorial in public access and then you can leave a note in curatorial. Both of these do not show up at the same time. If it's like a history note or something like that, you can figure out a way to work it in if it's of interest. Otherwise, a lot of the time, this will just be, it can be any note. I use it very often for this item needs to be rehoused, or unsure if this was owned by Mary Fish Silliman, research needed, stuff like that. Okay, how are we doing? So we're just about at 2:30. Were we scheduled till 2:30 or 3? I think we figured it was going to take a half hour, but we scheduled it longer. So
We scheduled to 1 to 3.
we are scheduled till 3. Awesome. So let me see if there's anything else I'm going to touch on, then we can talk about questions and things.
Did you go back to displays? You want to talk about displays?
I did a little bit. I don't know if I did it well enough because I was doing it from Fairfields and saying stuff like this with your being able to see like the thumbnail images and things like that. And to further refine results, click on that filter. I can get rid of that has media thing. And I can filter again by things like types. They're all physical objects from them. Great. If I hit this little minus, it shrinks back up and we can do another result and do object titles. And it puts in like just whatever titles are in there. So if you have a million different titles, that's what it comes up as.
We have 2 more questions too, if you would like.
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
Is there a specific page for loans to other institutions, or is that change of location, just change of location?
No, there's a specific page for loans. You can just change location if you want, but I usually put it in as a loan. It doesn't show up here, and we may just not have a loan in here. So if I was going to do a new loan, you have a choice between incoming and outgoing. I am going to do an outgoing loan, and it just gives you, it's pretty straightforward. It's not too crazy. I have my own shorthand that I use in Fairfields. I'm going to loan something to the Barnum. I'm going to say Barnum shoe exhibit. And then you can, again, notice there's no pages down here until you click save. So I'm going to click save on this. And I'll get choices over here. It's only a few, so there's not too many, which is fine. Related entity, I'm going to put Barnum Museum in here as the borrower. Authorization date, I'm going to say today. You can put in loan starts and ends, if something's a renewable loan or not. Like if you're going to renew it every year, go ahead and say yes. And then I've gone through and put in add loan term like every year as we go through. Actually, I should do it for, I should show you Barnum's because I have like a renewable loan from every year and I just have the chunks of it as it goes down. You can say when it actually left the building, when it came back by calendar date, loan purpose, exhibition, put the exhibition title down if you want, any conditions, credit lines, courtesy of the Fairfield Museum, things like that as you go down. You can also from here relate to other objects. So if you want to relate to shoes or something, you can start putting in items that you have that are going for this exhibit. And it'll just pick from your, I want to add a chair. I don't know why these are all coming up under chairs. It goes across different things, so it's really weird. Sometimes the things you get, because this, even in this field, is searching across a bunch of different fields. So it's useful if you've got a actual number to put in. It'll pull up stuff from a number and you can pick. Here's actual shoes. So that'll say that those objects, you can add those into the loan. So when you pull the loan up, you'll see all those things. Related people. I don't know if I have anybody else related to Barnum. Not really, but you could put people in as like your contact at that museum. I have done, just deleting that so I don't forget later. I have done, locations I do want to talk about quickly too, because that's going to be one of the first things you're going to want to look at as well. Oh, was there another question too, Dana?
Yeah, there's another question.
Yeah.
Hold on. Sorry, I did that one out of order. So
No worries.
I think you're kind of already talked about this a little bit, but can you explain what the relationship tab covers? Is it just relationships of objects to other objects, or relationship as in donors, etc.? When you're just
all of that. Oh,
Yeah.
Relationships in general. You can kind of relate anything to anything. Staying in Fairfield because I know there's stuff in here. So she's got 149 related objects. If I go into an object, oh, I should have picked something. You know, I'm going to go to my exhibit that I always go to. So this is an exhibit we did a couple of years ago that's just got a bunch of a good variety of stuff, and I actually was on my game and put all the objects in. So there's 45 related objects to this exhibit. If you go under, you'll see a relationships tab, and we're in the exhibit record currently. So you'll see viewing exhibition. There's 45 related objects. All of the modules have a relationships tab. So when you go into the relationships, you'll see related objects. These are all the objects related entities, related loans, and related sets. So this is a loan we got from the Pequot Library for that exhibit. And it's up to you. This is, again, a kind of internal how you want to track things. I'll put loans into the system. I usually do not put the object in as an object, just the way that I do it currently. Depending on your institution, you can. I do have, kind of like I said, I've got 5 chairs on loan from the Barnum Museum. Because those are a long-term loan, I do have those in my system so I can track them a little bit better. But like this one from Pequot, so now we're over editing incoming loan. I have it down here somewhere. I have my contact. Alice's Inventions in Wonderland, 1869 edition. I just have it in as a loan note. I didn't put it in as an object. So if I go from the loan module, if I go into relationships, I'm gonna again see Pequot Library is the lender. I'm gonna see Alice and Museum land as it's related to. Now I'm back in the exhibit. You can hop around a lot. Like I said, this is why you have to like know that if you get stuck, this is where you are up here. The 45 related objects. And I've got all these different things that were in the exhibit. But I have much related to this guy. Oh, weird little note. This is a good navigational thing. Sometimes you get like a weird little hiccup down here in this bottom corner, and you only see like a couple things at a time, and it's really annoying to try to get to the page you want. If you click on the little information thing and then unclick it, magically you can see more of your things. I don't know why it does this, but I know how to fix it. It's just odd. Partially depends on how big your screen is, but not always. But now I can see more stuff. So I can go down to the relationship tab here, and I can see that it's a related lot to this. So this is part of a group that came in here. I can also see that this was previously owned by Edna Reynolds Ferris. It was donated by Jean Ferris Anderson, and that it was in this exhibit. So from anywhere you can see how stuff is related. I'm going to go into this. I think there's more stuff. So in this lot, we can say, what else came in with this? This is why I like using lots, like I said, especially when I'm trying to reconstruct some of my donations over the years. So in the lots section, it now contains 11 objects. There's the basic info about the overall lot here. Sometimes I have listed out the things. This is 100% depending on how I'm doing stuff at my museum. You don't have to do it this way. This is everything that I was getting from an accession register that came in with this grouping of stuff. This is listing 23 things. I do not have 23 records in the system yet because I probably haven't put hands on some of these. But you can see information there. Contents. This is the ones that I have in. And there's my tabletop croquet set that we were looking at. I've got a woman's blouse. All kinds of stuff from these folks. Did that answer your relationship question? It's like a good, bad thing. Like everything relates, which is really cool, but then you just have to kind of keep track of where you are and which thing. But you can never not dig yourself out, because if you're like, I have lost total track of where I am, always just go back to the collective access button. You can be like, okay, here we go. I'm back home again. I can start up and go to wherever I need to. Or if I really want to go back to the objects, oh, right, the croquet set. You can go under history and get back to that. Okay. How are we doing with questions, everybody?
I think I'm all caught up in question. Oh wait, nope, hold on. Another one. And this is my favorite question of the session.
Oh, surpassing the other one. Okay.
Kathy's got another good one right here. So can you look at the actual database tables of relationships? And not tables, but you can see the reports you can look at. So
oh, reports, that's different. Okay.
And it's basically how the system is set up. So it's not, you're not going to see it in relationship form, but when you look at the reports, you're going to understand how they relate to one another.
Sort of. I will start answering, and if I'm not getting there, then let me know.
Okay.
We don't have the schematic of how the tables in all the different modules and all the different things relate, per se, in like an easy, viewable schematic. It's not necessarily there. However, if you really want to do deep dive in to see where things are and how you can relate things, especially in reports, you can customize your own report, which reports and displays are off of the same thing. This is more of a deep dive, but we're there, so we might as well. So when I have my results here, and I mentioned that we've got this lightbox view, and we can also go into this list view, spreadsheet view. Currently, I'm on this home locations display, and this is something that I created for me because we're still in Fairfield. It gives you column headers at the top of which fields you want included in this report. So this is a custom report that I did for me. The systems normally come with 4 or 5 out of the box reports that are very general use. So going over here for this report, I chose to have object media, identifier, titles, locations, current location, all kinds of location related stuff here. If I click on display options and I see what else I have for displays, again, this is me creating a bunch of stuff for Fairfields. I have a whole bunch because I use them for different projects and different needs. And I've got like a registrar info to just see stuff that I need for like deeds of gift. I've got proposed deaccession report, review for exhibitions, something like that. I've got that has stuff like dimensions in it and a quick curatorial description, the date, the dimensions to see if something will fit, stuff like that. So that being said, if you go into the manage up here and you go into my displays, so the displays will show up there in that, well, actually, let me back up for a second. Yeah, see, this is what you get if you use the browser. It doesn't always like it. Sometimes you can refresh it and it'll go back to where you just were. So if I'm here and I have all of these fields, haven't list form, I can also export it from here into something, into a spreadsheet, depending how I want it. So it depends what fields you want. If you're in an object, or actually in a group of objects. So I'm going to go back to Alice for a second and pull everything up. I'll do it in summary, actually, go into an individual one. So if I go into a summary for this guy right here, what I've selected for a display up here is what's showing up in this. So I've got that same huge list of stuff here that I can select, and that's what'll show up in the summary field. So if I do that review for exhibitions one, it changes all of the fields down here. And I know I'm not getting to your question yet, Kathy. We're working that way. So those are those fields that I've included in my review for exhibition inside like individual sheets. One that's really good for something like this is like proposed deaccession, if I have gone through and have condition reporting and stuff like that. These summary sheets you can export as PDFs too. Like if you wanted to print out a sheet for your object file, you can do that. Or if like your exhibitions team, everybody's laughing because nobody has an exhibitions team, wants to see something, you can print this out and give it to them. Print it out in Word, PDF, object summary, stuff like that. Okay, back to Kathy's question a little bit more. So in my displays, say we wanted to create a new display. So these are all my custom ones that I've done. And again, this is like next level stuff. So, but it'll just kind of give you the idea. And we have a couple office hours things recorded and training sessions and stuff recorded that goes over this in more detail. And we'll probably do more in this format as well. So if I want to do a new objects display, I can pick a test name, code, whatever you want. And I'll skip over a lot of this for now, just for sake of getting to the main thing I'm talking about. Click save. So now when you go through, you're going to see your options over here on the left-hand side again, the basic info and your display list. This shows you all of the fields that are available to display in your objects. So this is where you can create all of the things here that go in and add to your display list. And I know this isn't 100% answering your question, Kathy, but it's kind of the easiest to see in a way, without really getting into some of the nuts and bolts, which kind of help. But like I said, I don't have like an actual grid layout of where everything's like in a spreadsheet kind of thing. But you can add and slide things over from one side to the other, and it just automatically populates it and comes up with those fields in that display. But you can see that all of these are available for objects. If you scroll down farther, When you're putting these together, just as a note, it takes a few tries most of the time, because you have to figure out exactly which field you want, make sure it's the right fields. And there's so many that you have to kind of stop and really read each one. You will see as you go down, you've got, and it's all alphabetical. We're still on object, representations. And then you've got storage location, related storage locations, related occurrences, exhibitions, get moved over there. So those portions, like you can relate that object to that exhibition in your report, and it'll show up there. More so at the top too, there's collection related, entity related. I keep having my little box pop up, sorry. So list item, related items, related loans. So these are all available to show up in your display, and you can relate, and it kind of goes back and forth. You can create relationships if you want. Under relationships, like if I've got another object down here, and I want to say, I want to keep track of all of the games that we have. I have a lawn bowling set somewhere right here. So I can say these are both games and just is related to, and add that, and then it'll show up as a link to this. So if I click on save, if I link down here now, I can go to wooden bowling pins, click over there, and I can go to that record. So it's kind of almost endless ways you can relate things. Kathy, did that help or no? Or do you still have more on that? Oh, here's one of my favorite things too, my back cataloging lot, because I have a bunch of stuff they just decide to throw 1986 numbers on. So I start cataloging them under here to say, like, these got random 1986 numbers. I may know who they came from. I may not know who they came from, but I can find them and go from there.
Kathy said she said thanks and all good.
Okay, cool.
Also, too, just so everybody knows, I'm sure you've seen it in the chat, but I received a request for the manual, and so I did post it, but it is being revised right now to be like sort of reflective of the new system that we've been working on. So I posted the old one for now, but we'll send it in the newsletter when it's released, and it will be on our resource page, which I linked. So
because I don't want to make false promises, just go by the old manual for right now.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we're working on it. It is happening.
It's gonna be revised. Honestly, if I get it out before the end of this calendar year, it'll be a miracle. So it's so close. It's so close. But like I said, there's a couple revisions we're making to the system for things that I don't want to, that I would like to include. So.
And nothing's been taken away. Only things have been like really added. So
yep.
Yeah. So
and
it works.
Yeah. Still. And anytime you guys come across, anytime you have any questions about anything, email the CTCo address. Dana and I both monitor that. So we'll see it at some point and try to get back to you as soon as we can. Anytime there's any questions, if something's not working the way you think it should be, if something's not searching the way you think it should be, just let us know, because it's not necessarily you. It could be something that we just need to do a refresh on. Especially right now we've got a new server, and tech is in the midst of switching that over. I don't know where he is on that. So if there's something acting wonky, could be because of the server changeover. You shouldn't see any impact on that, but one never knows. So where am I? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, does anybody have questions?
There's a question about the we're working on this right now, so this is kind of a segue into what's happening right now behind the scenes. The creation of the finding aid from CT collections, and that's yeah.
Creation of the finding aid, like you guys want to print one out yourselves, or something that's going to export to Connecticut Archives Online.
And this is Kathy again, so to CAO.
So Kathy, we've got in, let me go back here for a second. So within this system, if you're working in this and, oh, was I in one before? No, okay. So if you're in here working in your stuff and you need to print out a finding aid for your notebooks in your reading room, if you go to summary, basically a full finding aid or collection finding aid, there's a couple different options. I'm honestly not sure which is including what. You can get to the summary here for your finding aid, and you can print it out and like add it to your binders. The export to CAO, we have not built yet. We have a couple things that we wanted to tweak for this as part of Conservation Connections Traveling Archivist program, which I know you're part of, that we need to do. And years ago, we had the finding aid ability to export an EAD finding aid, compatible finding aid. Right now, it needs to get rewritten. So if you tried to export it, it comes out kind of gobbledygook, but that's pretty much like Dana said, next up on our plate to coordinate with them and get that exported. And basically, our plan is that you guys won't have to do anything for that. As you create stuff in this and get it ready to go. Dana, we should have like an accessible, public accessible thing on that, like different than our accessible to the public. That it'll be ready to go. You guys should be able to like click a button and it will magically go there and you shouldn't have to do anything. So there may be, if you don't have your own section on Connecticut Archives Online right now, there will probably have to be like a little sign up, fill in data kind of thing for that first. But other than that, after that, we should be able to magically just appear. We do not have a timetable for that because we've got tech doing so many other things right now that that's on the list, but I don't know when they're going to get to it. Although our grant funding ends this fall. So it needs to be done by this fall.
I think that's the next step. CTA is being worked on too. So they're kind of both happening behind the scenes with both those people that run those programs in our developer.
Okay, anybody else?
And that will definitely be announced. It'll be in our newsletter when it happens.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So.
Pay attention to the newsletters when I send them out. Pay attention to the newsletters because there's usually little tidbits of information that are useful to know. And I'll let you know if there's stuff that's happening, whether it be trainings or milestones like the new server or things like that. Okay, questions from anybody else at this point? Even just general.
Yeah, we have like 5 minutes left if anybody has any collections questions or.
Otherwise, it means we did a fantastic job and everybody has learned everything and will be super easy, right?
Or you can attend on Friday again and, you know, if you feel like you want to use like a stop.
See if anybody brings up something different.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think we're good. If everybody else is good, then I'm going to stop recording and we can finish up.